You're listening to the Two Sleuth Podcast, all about the business of dentistry, hosted by yours truly, Greg Essenmacher, a fixable arch dental expert and founder of G&A Consult, speaking with industry leaders on the dental landscape from their perspective. Welcome back, everyone. Greg Essenmacher here, but you know who I am. I am super excited today. And why? Because I think this might be like my spirit animal, kindred spirit, ripped apart at birth out of the womb. Alex Nottingham, the founder and CEO of All-Star Dental Academy. Alex, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on today.
Glad to be here. Yeah, we were talking in the green room about being a visionary, having 100 ideas and only a couple of them work. So
yeah. And just keep throwing things out. And thank goodness that we have implementer integrators who actually make some of them work and speak our language, right? I was just talking about the fact that I have someone like Shar Watson who actually speaks Greg. And I was laughing and said, there's about 37 different dialects and she knows about 10 of them. So don't listen to this, Shar, because if you hear this, you'll probably run for the hills. So Alex, tell me a little bit about your journey. If I remember right from reading on your bio that you were a coach for Tony Robbins at one point of your career. Is this right?
Yes, that's right. So I went to school. I ended up getting my law degree and MBA, and I always admired.
So you're a smart one. We got to be careful around this one. I'm going to watch my words.
It looks good on paper, right? So I wrote a book with Brian Tracy. Big fan of. We wrote a book, Counterattack, and then he introduced me with Tony Robbins. And I wanted to build my own business. I wanted to be maybe a CEO for a Fortune 500 or do something like that. And I figured I'd give Tony Robbins a try. I didn't plan on being a top coach with him. I didn't want to be there that long, but I was, and it was a great experience working for him. But what was really interesting, the turnaround of why I kind of left Tony and went into dentistry, because that doesn't make any sense. You're building Tony Robbins. Why dentistry? I'm not a dentist, lawyer, MBA. That's kind of the furthest you can be from a dentist. And so my dad's a dentist. And ever since I was a little boy, he said, don't be a dentist, because he was seeing the people that are successful know business. He's the one who encouraged me to go law school and MBA in business, because he didn't have that. And his business was facing bankruptcy, quite frankly. And I offered to help. I was consulting with Tony for lawyers and other. I had one company, it was $100 million I was consulting for, and a dental office. So I started to take over that business, help with the marketing, but the patients weren't converting. So my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend. She was a retail sales manager and she didn't like the hours. So I took her from there, put her into, this is like how Visionaries work. Let's just try some things out, right, Greg? So I took her from there, put her in the office. And it was amazing what she was able to do. And she had experience in Bloomingdale's, right? But there was no training. So she used her customer service training in the dental office. And within 18 months, that $1 million business, we took it to $2.4 million. We were seeing heads of state. My father did very well with that business. And so after doing that for about maybe 8 years or 5 to 8 years of success, we said, let's try bringing that into dentistry and see if that would work, using what I learned for Tony and business models, and then also for her, seeing if the material that we were putting together could work. And it did in a big way. And of course, it's not just Heather and I. We have such an amazing team that we brought along. Our president of coaching, Eric Vickery, Larry Gazzard, our head instructor. So we were able to add pieces to the mix. Our integrator, Shelly Van Epps. So we have a great team, well over, I don't know, probably like 12 years now into doing this. So that's kind of how I transitioned into that.
Well, and what you're describing, and I love hearing this, is sometimes I feel, since I've been, in dental for 18 years, is that we get so siloed in our industry. And what you're describing of bringing Heather from the retail side, right, from Bloomingdale's into the dental space, an outside perspective, and saying, maybe if we just bring this customer service mindset from retail into dental, and let's just try this. Let's see what works here. Because at G&A Consult, and we had a little bit of a conversation about this as well prior to the show, is taking the concept of, in full arch that we do at G&A Consult, and we teach, coach, and train every touch point of that patient journey. the vast majority of success we have with our clients when they allow us to, find the team members, train the team members, seek them out, the vast majority of successful ones come from outside of dental.
Of
Because in those
course.
big cases, it's
Yes.
all about the why, not the what. The what is
That's
the
right.
product. You have to deliver a good product. But if you're going to be really good at what you do, it's the motivation of the patient. It's the why. Why today? Jenny, you've had a jacked up jaw for 20 years. Why is today going to be the day that you're going to invest $20, $30, $50,000, whereas before you didn't? What's that change? What's going to motivate you to move now rather than the last 20 years, right? Or at least the last 2 or 3. What's today? What's the difference? Why is it going to make a difference? Yeah,
I
go
like
ahead.
what you said about this, because going out of dentistry and thinking about, so Shelly may have told you, or Eric, that we have a hiring service as well as our online training and coaching. We've been finding that oftentimes hiring outside of dentistry, especially for obviously the front office, it's harder with assisting because you have to be trained in hygiene.
Sure.
But it's amazing what we're able to cultivate when you look outside and you look for the skill sets, you look for the customer service background, because retail people will kill to get a job in dentistry because it's great hours, they have benefits. So if you can get somebody from retail, has a great personality, they are wonderful on the phones. And experience is not always a good thing, because we don't want to have people keep doing the wrong thing. It's like, let's teach them. And it's often those that take to our training that you provide. They're more open-minded. They want to succeed. And I think that's a very important aspect of kind of finding and keeping great people, is looking outside of just your industry. So
sure. Coachable, teachable, mindset, right? All the
right.
things, rather than having to unlearn and relearn, it's a little bit better to have that blank slate. And, in the all on X lane, right? In the full arch lane, what we find is a little bit easier because the products are more limited, if you will. Now, in the general dentistry side, which many of our clients, right, have general dentistry practices and do all on X, right, specialized services, auxiliary service. The challenge is doing treatment plans in general dentistry. It's much more involved. And so to be able to, God bless what you do, right? Because many of your clients are much more broad in what they do, and bringing a treatment coordinator into that realm is a lot more challenging because the complexity. And
Sure.
Granted, I don't come from the ops side. That's not my lane. I'm glad there's people that do that. And we really focus on implants and full arch.
Yes.
That is a little more limited. I mean, it's still broad, but it's more limited, and it's easier to get somebody up to speed in that area. So you can teach the soft skills and the greeting and building rapport and really establishing relationship and guiding patients through that journey. Is that what you find as well?
Yes.
When you're doing your coaching? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's critical for what you teach as well, that you have those that have those soft skills, and that really, and we also work with a lot of dentists that are off insurance or want to get off insurance, less dependent on insurance. And the verbal skills are incredibly important. Any practice, any business has to be the level of your emotional intelligence, your training, the quality of your team will elevate your product. Even Amazon, that's huge. They pride themselves on customer service, and they're enormous. So, I won't speak about utility companies because they're a monopoly. They don't have to do that. But other companies, Amex, Apple, they're competing for that, and they're spending a lot of money in customer service. I have a little rule with our dentists, especially around me, that no DDS, no dull dental stuff. I don't want to hear about it. Our coaches will work with you on that, but there's plenty of places to do that. That the hard part is becoming a visionary, or at least a leader of your business. So we spend a lot of time on leadership. We have leadership retreats and training as well for that. I find what we're looking to put in play, much like the story of how All-Star came to be in my father's practice, is taking things that are just true across the board. Tony Robbins, my mentor, his whole thing is about modeling the best. What are the best doing? What are the best in all industries doing? Let's do that. Let's apply that. So I've been asked to speak last year. I did a keynote for Music Academy Success Studios. I was in Vegas, and I was teaching with the All-Star branding. I'm teaching what I teach at dental offices, and they loved it. It's the same thing. And we love to, everybody is special. Yes, they are special. But it's often an excuse that you find. Well, I can't work with G&A consult or also doing because I'm this type of practice. There's always some excuse of why I'm different versus looking at why are we the same? And I believe a lot of the fundamentals that we teach can apply to any business. So obviously the specialists work easily and of course there are going to be differences that you're going to find. But I think that if you want to grow, you have to find of where we're similar versus where we're different.
And when you're talking about these best practices, and it's what we do, right? It's all about taking best practices and replicating that, whether it's from inside or outside of dental. And that's really about the leadership and the leader. And when I speak, I talk about this, right? Phil Jackson, you can't deny 11 rings, right? His book, right. He talks about leadership and some of the core values about, empowering team members to do things, not ceding your authority. And so when you talk about those leadership pieces, so critically important that the visionary, that leader, the owner, the founder, the CEO, the growing groups, the emerging groups, all of those pieces, that they have this in their mindset, right? The details should be left to the integrators, the implementers in the practice. If you get lost in those details, the business isn't going to grow. Right. And that's right. Is what's so key to be focused on. And I do mindset coaching with all of our top tier clients, because that's where if they get stuck, their business isn't going to grow. And we find that with clients that get into that churn cycle, they get lost in that. They forget what their role is, right? Because everybody plays a role. It's like, you're putting on a play. Everybody has a role to play. And if you try to play more than one role, you get stuck. And you're not going to grow. And, and you also said one of the phrases that I love to use is identify, don't compare, right? If you're comparing yourself to others, you're going to lose. But if you identify and say, I am like that person or that group or that fill in the blank, and you can find the similarities, you can replicate and then you can duplicate and you can then expand your business. And that's where the goal is. That's where the key, that's where the magic happens, especially in full arch, right?
True.
What are they doing that they're having success with? Let me do some of that and then put my own spin on it. And is that what you're talking about when you're working with your clients?
Yes. I mean, you always have to come into it with humility. You always got to come into it with where can I learn? Otherwise, you just exclude yourself. Now, I'm curious, Greg, I have these silent profit killers that I talk about. When I do a webinar at allstardentalacademy.com, there's a link webinar, and I do a free webinar where I go into detail. But I'm curious also, maybe we can do it as a case study. So I'm curious if it applies also with full arch as well and what you're seeing. So before I get into the three profit killers for the practice, is I see that in dentistry can be very profitable. And you can have a great life in dentistry. We see that. But others know the secret. There are others out there that know this. And that's corporate dentistry. They know that, and again, I'm not getting into it, they're good or they're bad. There's some good ones and bad ones. But they know that it can be profitable like any business. And dentists can be inefficient and still make money. And corporate's like, well, let's be efficient and make money, right? And then you have, on top of that, you have insurance companies that they're not in the business of really making you money. Okay. They're in the business of making themselves money. You have costs are going up. You have wages are going up. You have turnover, which is why our hiring service has been so key. And we've done this before we had this issue with quiet quitting and so on, and staffing shortages, especially in hygiene. So you have all those things happening, and then offices are stressed. The ADA states that the number one stressor for dental practice is staff-related issues. So you have all these things that are going on in a practice. Would you agree that do you see these type of pressures as well in with your clients?
Hey there, it's Greg Essenmacher, host of the Two Sleuth podcast and founder of G&A Consult. At G&A, we specialize in transforming full arch dental practices, teaching, coaching, and training teams to deliver an exceptional patient experience, from that first call to delivering final smiles. Whether you're a practice owner, a DSO executive, or a regional leader looking to expand your full arch program, boost same-store sales, or unlock the true profitability of full arch cases, we've got you covered. Ready to see how Full Arch can elevate your practice? Visit the show page or book a discovery call today. Let's turn your potential into results.
Yeah, we do. And that's where we're really trying to find the right industry partners to be able to, that we're not having to do all of that for and with. So finding those solutions for our partners, we stick to, what we do best, right? Which is the teach, coach, and train side of every touch point of the patient journey. But if you have the wrong person, right, or the right person in the wrong seat, or the wrong person in the right seat, either way, being able to find the talent that makes the most sense. Certainly we can help with that, but you have to have the right partner to bring in that talent, to source the right talent. And we've tried many. So you need a good third-party partner. If you don't have your foundationally, a good handbook that's consistent and updated and implemented, that's in compliance, and it's, on it, I just did, a 3-part webinar series with one of our partners on this, a playbook, right? A handbook that they have that was from 8 years ago, and it has handwritten, literally penciled in stuff. When I said, okay, so, new partner, onboarding, great. Send me your handbook for employees that you onboard with. And they literally sent me a PDF, and it had handwritten, penciled in stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't know if that's the best way to go forward. So all of the things that you're talking about, all of these outdated, pressure things that distract from the ability of the visionary to be able to implement. That it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? It's like something pops up here, an employee related issue pops up there. Somebody's going on maternity leave. Oh, somebody's moving away. We have a need for, or in our case, the micro team, they're doing 4 to 5 arches a month, plus they have a $3 million a year GP practice, right? Now we start working with them. And if all those other areas aren't addressed, now they start doing better and converting more leads. So they get more consultations, putting stress on the schedule. Now they convert more of those consultations into arch starts, and they're doing 8 a month. Okay, that puts more strain on the GP side of the schedule. So do they bring in another associate? How's the GP side of the practice still handling and staying profitable? Because if you're just shifting profits from one side to the other, that's why we also do the operations side of the practice. And I'm so grateful for Shar, who's come into the business, an organization that works on that side of the practice. And we do visibility, P&Ls peeled away from the full arch from the rest of the practice. All of these things, because if one lever pulls, it affects 7 or 8 others. So what you're talking about, we have those systems in place, whether through partners, trusted partners of ours, or we do it ourselves. And that's what you're talking about. All of these stressors in the practice itself. And let's face it, like the doctor should be focused on clinical excellency and being a leader. Those 2 things, and all the rest, there's subsets of that, of course, right? But if they're drilling down into, I think you call it the DDS, right? The doctor detail syndrome or whatever. Forgive me, I forgot exactly what
doctor detail syndrome, dull dental stuff. But that's
dull
that's
dental
a pretty
stuff,
good one.
right? I just created one for you. I love acronyms, right? But if they're lost in those details, they really are losing sight of what their responsibility is. And Simon Sinek talks about this. He's like, CEOs have lost their vision. They've lost their primary responsibility, and it's why the public trust is starting to fade away. Because employees want to put their trust in the leader, in the CEO, of seating and saying, yes, you can make all this money, and I'm happy to help you make all this money as long as you take care of the things you need to take care of. Set the vision, make sure the company's on stable ground, and take care of us in a proportional way.
Well,
and that's
what's
key.
difficult for dentists is they have to wear, we get to be CEO all the time. They're usually producers, and they have to also be CEO. So I just, that's why I think coaching is so important, and support and partners, if you talk about for a dentist to be able to, if they want to, can still, and most of them want to still produce, they enjoy it. So they need to be having people around them. I'm curious with the full arch. And it's funny, we were talking about in the green room where we're positioned, not on the final cut, but in the way I'm in the podcast seat right now. So I'm going to ask you questions now. But
I know it's like a back and forth. This is great. I love it.
Right. Because we're both podcast
What do you
hosts.
think?
So,
what do you think?
Yes, your turn. And we could do it in the soft voice too. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
So with phone call conversion, so you do full arch. So these are going to be quite pricey, high revenue, high income cases. Am I correct?
High risk, high reward. Yes.
Okay. So I want you to work with me on this. I want to go through at least one of the silent killers here. And I talk more detail in the webinar, but I'm going to talk about kind of the bread and butter one. And then I want to hear, you're going to make this sound even more powerful. So what I find is,
I should have a team member on here, right? And not the CEO,
no,
not the
it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to go crazy in the numbers.
He's putting Greg on the spot. I love it because the socials will blow up over this one. No, I'm
well,
kidding.
You know what's
Go
a good
ahead,
thing
Alex.
is you have the power to edit this. So if after this conversation you don't hear anything
they
from
won't
them,
let me do it. No, they're going to throw it out there. They love this type of
stuff. They want to embarrass you. Let's see what you know. But this is simple. So listen, what we find with call tracking research that the average practice, and again, your numbers might be different, but they have about 135 new patient opportunities a month. Okay, some are more or less. Only 35% actually convert. That means 87 are not converted. Right. And again, like I said, different metrics can give you different things, but we're going to start in with, this is one of the metrics that we were able to see. Now, what we find, let's just say that the average practice works 4 days a week, 4 weeks per month, although technically it's 4.33, but let's just do 4. That's 16 working days a month. I like numbers, and money is fun. And so that's 16 a month. All right. So now we go into what is the average value of a new patient for the first year. So this is a statistic that the ADA put out 2 or 3 years ago, $642. So I'm sure it's higher than that, but let's use the old number. So if you put that old number in, that means that's $10,000 lost. If you only miss 16 working days, meaning you didn't convert the patient, you didn't answer the phone, only 16. We're not saying 87. We're saying just 16. I'm being very conservative. One opportunity per day you missed. Okay, that's $10,000 a month. And then what I do with my math, I say, okay, well, if that's happening every month, that's $120,000 a year. And then we say, okay, the lifetime value of a patient is 10 years. That's $1.2 million in opportunities you're never going to get back. That's a nice retirement right there. And what you guys do, just give me a range. When you're talking about a procedure you guys do, what is the revenue for that?
Yeah, single arch, the accepted is about 22,000 because some will go down to 18, some will go for a single arch, right? And then we look at 1.4 arches per patient, so a patient conversion. So you're really looking about $30,000. We kind of do the accepted 32,000, right?
So for you,
for patient conversion, yes.
Right.
Conversion of patient, not conversion of phone call.
Right. No. Just saying, like, of course, I'm going to, at general practice.
I like numbers too.
Right now. So yes, we have fun here. Visionaries love numbers. So 16, I have to, for a general practice or cosmetic, whatever, general practice, I wouldn't even go cosmetic, and we're not even go to even specialists. These are going to start going up, and full arch is really high, or full mouth reconstruction. So with just a GP deal, these one missed opportunity, okay, per working day, 16 is 10,000. For you, just one is 3 times that. So the numbers get, my point of what I'm saying here is that we have to pay attention to phone skills. If people ask me, I mean, we are amazing at case acceptance. We do a whole day program on case acceptance. When it comes to scheduling, all of practice management, we do. But our bread and butter, number 1 is going to be phone skills. Number 2, case acceptance, the close number 2, because our president of coaching is a genius at this. But even when we teach case acceptance, phone skills is such a key part of it. So we are known for that. And because we look at it, the reason is not just because we're good at it. My wife did it for my father's practice, but you see in terms of the funnel where everything gets stuck, if you can't convert the phone call, you don't pass go. And it's so expensive. What dentists don't realize, because they're just getting in the flow. We're just doing what we're doing. We're not paying attention. We want to look at the sexy things that, the instruments, this, that, even full mouth it's very good. But if you cannot convert that phone call, if you do not do that, you have nothing.
Yeah, and we find, and in full arch, all on X, what we see is there's a couple of things when it comes to the phone. So the phone will ring often, right? That
Yes.
it depends on the practice, depends on if they actually have a phone bank, a call center, things of that nature. For the emerging groups, the larger groups, and especially the DSOs, right? So that's a category in and of itself, set
Yes.
aside specialists, things of that nature. But for the smaller practices, right, the GP practice that adds full arch in, typically like the form fills or the surveys that come in. So it's not just that phone skills of inbound. Most often, it's that speed to lead and getting back to them, and then being able to get into the grind. And can you multitask into text message savvy and getting back to them and being available when they're available, meaning the patient, to respond back? And how savvy are you at that communication skill of, once you get them on the hook, think about phishing, once you get them on the hook in dialogue and have 5 or 6 dialogue windows of text going back and forth and saying, great, let's hop on a quick call and let me answer that for you. I'm available now. Right? Oh, I'm at work. Great. Can you take just a quick 5-minute break? It'll be so much easier to answer just in a quick 3-minute call. All I need is 2 or 3 minutes of your time. And how is that dialogue back and forth? And that's where it's not just the phone skills. Sure, once you get them on the phone, then make that emotional connection, make all that happen. And it's not just the phone skills, because in All on X and Full Arch, and anybody listening knows this, anybody who's ever listened to any of my programs or any of my speaking engagements on the website, all of it, right? The 3-part webinar series I've done with a number of our partners, everything has to do with the no-show rates. And so often, and I hope people are listening to this because this has got so much gold from your side as well. Practices will think, the doctors will say, I have a problem with no-shows. And the first thing they think the problem is,
are you looking at my notes?
I know. I say, right. If they think it's the marketing company, it's not the marketing company.
Because that
is your team.
It
is your team, and the way they're answering the phone, and the lack of emotional connection with your patients, and that's why they're not showing up, because they just don't feel, because they don't trust you.
That's
right. If you're just putting an ad out there, right? If you're in that red ocean, you're going out there and putting an ad out there on Google, Meta, it doesn't matter where, TikTok, if you're throwing a mailer out there, they don't trust you. There's zero trust built in. And if you don't make an emotional connection with that patient, there's no obligation to show up.
That's right.
And that's why your no-show rates are out of control. And that's why you're not converting the leads. And if you're not converting the leads, they're not showing up for consultations. What is that doing to your schedule? It's blocking your schedule, and there's holes in it all over the place. So now what is that doing to your production and your collection?
Well, that's the second silent killer, by the way, is broken appointments. How you stop there.
Right.
And you're right in the sense that the better you do on the front end, which I call phone skills, it mostly is, but there are other aspects that I like that you mentioned with technology, with engagement, with follow-up. And ultimately, whether it's text messaging, whether it's a live person, whether it's email, whatever it is, we don't want to, now we caution, I'm sure you do as well, we caution too much reliance on only technology, because it's important, but it won't save you from, I mean, AI is great, but sometimes it spits out stuff that isn't personable. But we have an acronym we teach at All Street Dental Academy called the Great Call Process. G is greeting, R is rapport, E is engaging the patient, A is ask for the appointment, T is taking information. Now, with rapport, if you don't build rapport, like we had instant rapport, we spent about 10 minutes, 15 minutes chatting about our, even though we have LASIK, right? We're going to get glasses for far seeing, whatever. We had a good time, but we built rapport. And when you have rapport with a patient, that increases your chances of moving forward. And what often happens in phone calls and in quote scripting, we never get to that. And you may book the appointment. It's interesting. By the way, when I worked at my dad's office, we tried a lot of these things out there in the market that are still here. We tried some of the sales stuff, and it worked initially. People would book, but then they would cancel.
Challenger, go right down the list. All of
it. But they would cancel.
Work.
They would cancel. They didn't show. They were bad. They were poor patients. They weren't. It wasn't a good process. So what I'm hearing you saying, Greg, is you have to be strategic with what you're doing, and you have to have the right operator. So I think 3 things: you have to have the right strategy, which it sounds like you guys are great at that with Full Arch. Then you have to have the right people that are willing to be trained, and you have to train them, and they have the skill set, and then you execute on it. If you miss any aspect of that piece, proper strategy, the wrong people, the right people, if any of these are missing and you're not training, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you're after my own heart when you say about scripts, because we talk about the fact that scripts don't work, but formulas do, and we certainly have that, and people know all about our EAZ formula, which, by the way, is trademarked, and we love that because it's empathy, assurance, right, which is acknowledge what they say, answer them, and then ask another question that drives the conversation forward in zeal. Yeah.
The great call process is trademarked. And the other day, I'm like, I go to my wife, Heather, she created it. And I'm like, I don't want to pay. It's like $1,200 to renew it. I'm like, I don't want, who's going to take this? She's like, I don't want to pay it. She's like, pay for it. Like, that's mine. We use
That's
it.
Right. That's
it's like,
right. We're using
fine.
it. You better pony up, Buckaroo.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
Alex, this is the point of the program. All
Okay.
my guests play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On. It's 3 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Let's see. Let's do it.
All right.
That's funny.
Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered? Your wife is listening.
The worst bad breath by somebody or
you've ever encountered?
I don't know. Probably a teacher. It's probably, you know what it is? It's probably some teacher when I was in elementary school. And I'm so, I have a sense of smell that like I could smell bad breath from like 20 feet away. And that's like the worst thing. So I think you just brought up a lot of trauma. Let me call my therapist now. Hold on. We have to have a talk because you just opened up a can of worms.
Well, I get a little spiff from your therapist. They sent me a message before the podcast. So I just needed a little bit more money in my bank before I go on retreat here. Yeah. There you go. All right. Question number 2. If you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
One thing about my smile? Well, I've been told by, my dentist, my dad and others that I go to, that I'm a bit of a grinder. So it would be good to not grind as much. I wear my night guard every night. So maybe if I would grind less, I vowed not to chew ice anymore. That's been going well for me so far. So I'm not breaking fillings and things. I was threatened with a crown if I do it again. So probably chill on the grinding.
I mean, spirit animal. I'm a grinder too. I'm telling you, we're like literally the same person.
Same person.
Question number 3.
Okay.
If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, and no, you can't choose your own, which one would you choose and why?
A dental product, and I can go back and I would like to be okay, so I'll give you my initial reaction, but if I had time,
first thing that comes to mind.
I don't know why this came to mind. This isn't the most profitable. I don't know why I'm thinking intraoral camera. I don't know why. I just think it's so cool. That popped up. I wish I had more time to think about like the most expensive, like, $1 trillion thing.
Yeah, you can't be the visionary, the business person. That's why I frame it. First thing that comes to mind. See, you can follow direction.
It's intraoral camera.
I'm proud of you.
Yes,
right.
I did.
This is a big growth moment for you, Alex.
It is.
You can follow direction. All of those degrees, Tony Robbins coach, now a very successful, thriving company.
That is not one of my strengths.
Squirrel.
Right? Squirrel.
I do shiny keys. Shiny keys.
Shiny keys.
That's mine. Shiny keys.
Yeah, that's
like
a good
baby,
one. Where is it? Where is it? There it is.
Shiny
okay.
keys. Oh, shiny keys. There it is. Follow it. Alex, this has been a true pleasure. I have a feeling that we're going to talk and probably do some content other than just this program, because it truly has been a pleasure. And I'm sure my listening audience has gotten a lot out of this. People are like taking notes, rewinding, taking more notes, heading over to your website for sure. If anything that we haven't covered on this podcast, I want to make sure I respect your time and my listening audience that you want to share.
I mean, since I'm the co-podcast or I'm the podcast seat, the way it's viewed right now, the call to action is always a good one. Go to allstardentalacademy.com, no hyphen in there, just all one, allstardentalacademy.com, and just click a bunch of buttons, whatever you're interested. We also have a podcast. Greg is on as well. Greg is a blast. And I got a chance to edit him, so he'll look great. Don't worry. But we have Dental All Stars podcast. You can check that out. Our YouTube channel, our social media, you'll find us.
It's good stuff for sure. Alex Nottingham, thank you so much for being a guest on the Two Sleuth podcast. It truly has been a pleasure speaking with you today. And whenever you meet your kindred spirit, it's always a fun time. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
If you need help with converting lead calls into consultations, closing consults into more full arch cases, or creating a more strategic marketing message and branding for your practice or group, follow me for more tips or reach out to G&A Consult for a discovery call today.